It's crazy how long a lie can survive if everybody's in on it. On the surface, the Brown family always presented themselves as this one great big happy family, bound together under God, led by love, and headed by a father who swore he had it all together. You will know, though, if you've been paying attention, really paying attention, that behind those forcefully arranged smiles and those posed family campfires, something far more sinister was cooking. It wasn't just foundation cracks. The whole house was built on shaky ground, and now, years down the road, we're finally seeing it all fall apart in real time. Hi guys, I'm Luna and welcome back to my channel. If you've ever sat and looked at the screen and thought, there's no way this is real, you're not alone, today we're tearing down the facade that kept this family together, or at least made it seem that way. Make sure to subscribe, comment with your thoughts, and buckle up. This one's gonna sting. At the center of it all is Kody, the self-titled patriarch, the man who shouted loud for unity and equality, while silently tearing his own family apart from the inside out. And close behind him, not a step back from the spotlight, was Robyn. Quiet, crying, always misunderstood, or so she'd like us to believe. But what the show didn't always scream at the top of its lungs, the footage whispered. Control wasn't being exerted openly, but subtly layered beneath emotional manipulation, tactical silence, and wounded egos. In reality, though it appeared the family orbited around Kody, the force that drew everything in a single direction was Robyn, and Kody, he wasn't dictating, he was hanging on. He was desperate to feel in control, desperate to be loved, desperate not to be abandoned. And in that desperation, he surrendered control one silent moment at a time until she was calling every shot. The other wives saw it. The children felt it. And now we're all seeing the cost of that slow-motion meltdown. Kody Brown has always talked like a man with a plan. Starting from the very first seasons, he proudly claimed to be the head of the family, the spiritual leader, the guide, and the protector. He used words like unity and teamworks to claim that it was his job to keep the family running as one unit. However, if we move beyond the speech and look into what he did in his real life, that leadership is not about principle but mostly about performance. Kody does not lead. He dictated on his own terms, pushed them away when things got difficult, and required loyalty without offering it in return. One of the most revealing moments was at the height of the CO lockdowns. Kody made strict mandates that didn't make a lot of sense and required each wife to enforce them in her own household, even though he wasn't present himself in a consistent way. When Christine questioned why it was not fair, Janelle tried to push back against how isolating the rules were for her and her kids. Kody shut down emotionally. Not only did he refuse to move, but he blamed them for him feeling unsafe. That word unsafe became his shield every time a wife pushed back. But real leaders don't hide behind buzzwords. They listen, he didn't. And recall his response when Christine said she was going to leave. Rather than own up to years of emotional abandonment, he went into classic ego collapse. He said she was disloyal. He said she was betraying him. It wasn't grief at the loss of a partner, it was rage that somebody had the nerve to leave his system. He couldn't exert control over her anymore, and that devastated him. With Mary, it was even worse. After years of distance, infidelity rumors, and the entire catfish situation, Mary stayed. She still wanted connection. And Kody, he went on camera saying there was no relationship left while not allowing her to just go with dignity. He did not want her, but he did not want her to leave either. Why? Because to Kody, losing a wife was not about love. It was about status loss. He needed loyalty from Janelle, yet offered her none in exchange. When she started standing up for herself, he seemed surprised. As if her agency was a personal attack. This is not the action of a real leader. It's the action of a person threatened by losing control when the people around them start waking up. The truth is the only thing being protected in that home was Kody's ego. His leadership was never about heading a family, but about upholding an image. And one by one, the women who had bought into that image started to recognize it for what it was. When Robyn first entered the Brown family, the shift in dynamics wasn't immediate, but it was undeniable. She acted the part to perfection initially. Soft-spoken, emotional, always a little tearful. She called herself the interloper, the one who was trying to get in, wanting nothing more than to be part of the sisterhood. But as the days passed, it became noticeable that she wasn't just adjusting to the family was adjusting to her. And Kody, he wasn't just smitten. He was reordering his entire universe to orbit around her. Robyn's controlling style is not noisy. She doesn't scream. She doesn't demand, at least not directly. What she does instead is cry constantly. She breaks down in nearly every single argument. She turns normal disagreements into emotional minefields. It's a tactic that makes anyone who opposes her look cold, callous, or even heartless. And it does, since Kody bites every time. And a good example was with the Kody episodes. Robyn was portrayed as simply enforcing rules that Kody supposedly created to keep the family safe. But the rules, they conveniently seemed tailored to her home. Robyn's home had a nanny. Robyn's kids were shielded from everything. And Kody, he practically lived there. Christine's kids could not see their father. Janelle was told that her boys were too risky to be around. But Robyn, she had complete access, emotional, physical, and parental. When Christine finally confronted her about it, saying that she felt like there was a favorite wife, Robyn played shocked, hurt, betrayed. "I didn't do anything," she cried. But the pattern was already clear. Every rule, every major family decision, every punishment, it all worked to Robyn's advantage, and she never did have it. She clung to the narrative that she had no power, that she was just doing her best and trying to keep the family together. Then there was the moment the wives confronted the nanny's status under lockdowns. The rest of the family was forced to isolate, limit contact, and follow strict protocol. But Robyn's family had a full-time nanny in and out. When Janelle asked, "What does the nanny do?" it struck a nerve, less because the question was rude, but because it exposed the hypocrisy. Robyn's face melted into another conveniently timed emotional meltdown, and Kody jumped to her defense again. Not even the kids were safe from this imbalance. Saul was often shown in headphones, conscientiously shielded from adult conversation, while the rest of the family's kids were forced to deal and listen in. Ari, the youngest of the group, ran amok without limits, not in liberty, but in excess. And when it all became awkward, Robyn's default was always the same: victimhood, misunderstood. "I just want us to be a family." But the thing is, Robyn wasn't simply attempting to fit in. She was subtly shifting the whole dynamic. And Kody allowed her. He relinquished control one compromise at a time. He believes that shielding Robyn is shielding the family. What he does not realize, or does not want to realize, is that he is forcing the other wives out through the back door. Robyn is not just another wife. She was the only one who was important. And she somehow continues to make everyone, Kody included, believe that it is not her fault. If you ever want to know what is really going on in a family, watch the children. They see everything, even though they don't know how to tell you what they are seeing. For the Brown family, the silence of the kids has been a long-standing witness to the dysfunction growing. Behind Kody and Robyn's perfectly constructed facade lies a whole generation of children trying to understand unjust rules, absent parents, and ever-changing expectations. And on top of it all, it's all being filmed. Let's discuss how Kody and Robyn raised their children versus how the other wives raised their children. Janelle, Christine, even Mary. Sure, they raised children in chaos, but with boundaries. They didn't have perfect systems, but they had expectations, routines, and most of all, boundaries. Christine was basically the primary caregiver for the family for years. She was the one who was making lunches, teaching manners, doing homework, while Kody flew back and forth between homes. Janelle had very independent-minded children who spoke their minds because that's what she did. Even Mary, for all her struggles, encouraged her child to go pursue schooling, travel, and self-expression. Now contrast that with Robyn. Her parenting style: smothering, overprotective, anxious, but weirdly hands-off when it really matters. Saul walking around with headphones on while adult conversations are happening. Not because he is interested in listening to music, but because Robyn seems obsessed with shielding him from anything unpleasant. There's even a moment where the headphone cord is literally reaching into her pocket. That's not parenting. That's control disguised as protection. And then there's the infamously axe incident. Saul, 6 or 7 years old, is in the woods with a full-sized axe swinging away while Kody, barely paying attention, narrates to the camera. It's shocking. The same parents who acted like the world was ending when Christine let her kids go on a car ride on are letting their own son play lumberjack without any supervision in real life. The hypocrisy is not more apparent. And then there is Ari, sweet, nuts, and completely boundaryless. In one scene, she's screaming at other girls about boyfriends like she's auditioning for a soap opera. In another, she's off on an adventure covered in paint while the rest of the family is trying to do a group project. Robyn's response: "Okay, you're done." Such unevenness wounds. When some kids get to enjoy freedom and emotional availability, and others have to deal with distance, favoritism, and rigid expectations, it sets up division that can persist for decades. Robyn's children have been protected to a fault at times, while Christine's and Janelle's children have had to grow up fast, more often than not parentifying themselves with Kody's absence. And the worst part is, Robyn and Kody act like this is the norm, like the other wives were somehow careless or negligent. But anyone who's been following this show long enough knows the kids from the other homes have shown more maturity, more graciousness, and more emotional intelligence than we've ever seen emanating from within Robyn's home. The dysfunction doesn't come from painful family dinners or competing rules, it's what happens when kids are forced to play along in a game they never signed up to play. You have been warned. Some are favored and some are overlooked, and none of them receive the parenting they deserve appropriately. You ever see something that's meant to be heartwarming to you, but all you're experiencing instead is secondhand embarrassment? That is how these so-called family trips have begun to appear in the Brown universe, particularly those Coyote Pass excursions. Kody wants so badly for us to believe this is still one big happy family, that what we're witnessing is a group of happy children and parents enjoying the great outdoors together. But the truth, it's staged. It's strained, and everyone, the kids most of all, look like they'd rather be somewhere else. The outing to Coyote Pass was meant to be a bonding experience. Kody acts chopping marshmallows on the flames, children playing in the dirt. Wholesome in theory, but the vibe, it's hollow. Nobody laughing, nobody warm, just strained silence broken by Kody overcompensating with the dad of the year routine. And Robyn shows up with her designer cooler like she's the guest of honor, not a joiner. All of her children appear rigid now, her smiles strained, totally detached from the rest. And the most painful part is watching Kody strut around like he still rules the roost. The way he shows off Robyn's wedding band like a prize. The way he falls into these kind of hero moments like rescuing the family from themselves when in fact he's the exact one who shattered it. It is not love. It is not unity. It is PR. Calculated moments to salvage the Kody and Robyn brand while everything else all falls apart around them. And then the whole attempt to get back to church. All of a sudden Kody and Robyn are front and center again, talking about faith and values and rebuilding the family. But we're not biting because for years they've chosen favoritism over fairness. They've created regulations that shut out rather than open up. And now that most of the wives are out of the picture, they're trying to rewrite history, one church appearance at a time. Even their love doesn't feel right. On TV they're holding hands, whispering sweet nothings and acting like newlyweds. But behind the scenes Kody is coming unglued. His other relationships are dying. His kids are pulling away. And Robyn, she's still doing that "I'm just trying to keep us together" act while secretly making money off of every severed connection. It's not a love story, this is damage control. What we are seeing isn't unity, it's an act. And as Kody and Robyn hold on to the facade of togetherness, the rest of the family has moved on. The facade is cracking, and beneath it all that's left are two people desperately trying to sell a fairy tale no one wants to believe in anymore. At the end of it all, the staged family outings, the forced smiles, the rules that keep changing, the endless fight to keep up an image that's falling apart, it's the kids who end up paying the price. They're the ones who are growing up in the middle of a story edited for cameras, but lived in chaos. Not the campfires, not the awkward hugs, not the ring flashes or fish pond dreams. You can't build a healthy family on favoritism, fear, and control. You can't call it unity when it's being held together by silence and sacrifice. And you can't lead if your sole concern is how you're coming across. To hear from you, what were the moments that resonated with you? When did you first start to notice the turn? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read each and every one of them. And this community right here is where the truth really lives. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I am Mara, and you are in TLC's next chapter. Subscribe if you haven't yet and hit that bell so you don't miss the next breakdown. You guys mean the world, particularly when the truth is hard to look at.